Hello everybody. Welcome back. This is Professor West. In the last video, we made a simple version of one-player Pong, where the ball bounces around the screen, you use the paddle and you try to hit it, and you get a point every time you hit it, and then when it hits the bottom rail, it ends the game. In this video, so if you haven't watched that video, you might want to do it real quick so that you can set everything up, because in this video we're going to add bricks and we're going to add a few other things and turn Pong into the brick breaker game, similar to the Atari old Breakout game, where as the ball hits the bricks they can disappear or change or whatever we want to do. So let me give you an example real quick. This is what we're going to be doing, and when we hit a brick enough times, it'll disappear. At the angle that it's going, it's going to be a little bit. So I'm just going to let this go, but you get the point. That's what we're going to be doing. So let me minimize this. We'll go back to, let me go to projects and go to one of them that we've done recently. And here we go. This is our standard Pong game that we created last time. So let's just jump right in. I'm assuming you already have all this made. If not, like I said, go watch the other video. And let's just jump right in and start adding stuff. So the first thing we want to do, by default right now, we had started it off where our ball would be up by the top. So I'm going to move it down here some, because I'm just going to add bricks up here. And to add bricks, I'm going to come over to the drawing and animation section. And remember, we've got a canvas here, because anytime you want pictures to be on a canvas, or on an app, it has to be on a canvas. So I'm going to grab and drag an image sprite and another one, and I'm going to drag about 10 altogether for now. You can do way more if you want, or you could do way less, whatever you feel like, and just spread them out however you want them. And as far as the computer is concerned, it doesn't matter, so just plug them all in there. And I'm just going to leave them named image sprite 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I already have my paddle sprite reset to a different name, so I know that these are the pictures. These are going to be my bars. So I'm just going to go to the first one, and I'm going to tell it to add a picture. And in this case, I've already added a bunch of pictures, but I'm going to walk you through it real quick. And I'll make these pictures available in the extra documents and the supplemental material that goes along with this. So all you do is go to upload file and pick whichever one you want. I have 5 of them here. I've got one called brick aqua, brick blue, brick green, brick pink, brick yellow, and I thought I had another one. Oh, okay, that's 5. So in order to upload them, if you didn't want to do it this way, you could always come over into the media and come down to the, let me bring it up, the upload file button, and upload them individually this way as well. So that's entirely up to you. I'm at least going to do a couple this way. So I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to pick aqua for now, so that I can see how big it's going to be. And maybe I'll do another one here. Maybe I'll make this one blue for now. And let's see. And this kind of lets me figure out how I want them set up. So if I want them to be even, if I don't want them to be even, I can offset them however I want. I'm the programmer. It's up to me. On your screen, it's entirely up to you. So for now, I'm not going to worry about changing the picture for all these, because I'm actually going to do that in the code. I was only doing this to see how they were set up and to show you how they're set up. So if you want to go ahead and put pictures for each one, you can. Oops. But you don't have to. So now that I've got this done, I'm just going to go right into the blocks. So up at the top, we're going to go into the blocks, and here's the code that we had for Pong. We're going to update some of this, and we're going to add some stuff. So the very first thing I want to do is right now in my button start, let me show you what's going on. Let me pull the emulator back up, and of course it's going to close. Let me pause this and reopen it. Okay, so I got my emulator back up. So right now when I hit the start button, my ball starts moving, and it centers it over here somewhere. And I can play, and whenever I lose, it resets. I can hit the reset button to change the score back if I want. We did this in the previous stuff. And then my ball comes up here, and by default right now, my start button should start it up here, but I've already made a change. But I'll fix that in just a second. So that's all it's doing right now is the reset button, the ball's stopped. So the start button is going to start the ball moving. It picks a heading at this anywhere in this range, and it sets the speed to 5 and the interval to 10, which tells it how often it moves. And that's all it does. So now I need to go into my blocks and add some stuff to it. So let me make a little bit of room here. And the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to make a list. So I'm going to come over to lists, and I'm going to go to make a list. Let me make that a little bigger so that you can all see. So I just went to lists, and I went to make a list. That's the second item. And I'm just going to put it here on the screen for a minute. And this is going to be a list of all of my picture sprites, my image sprites. And that means I've got 10 of them, so I need to add some more spots here. And to do so, you click on the little gear icon, and you just drag item right over. So now there's 4. See how there's 4 here also? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now I have 10 spots, so I can do my 10 sprites. So now I'm going to click on one of the sprites, and I'm going to come all the way down to the very bottom where it says Image Sprite 1. And I'm just going to put it over here for a second. And you can either right-click and do duplicate, or you can do Control-C if you're on a Windows computer to copy, and Control-V to paste. If you're on Mac, I think it's the Mac key something plus C. I'm not really as familiar with Mac, so I'm not totally sure. So I'm just going to plug all these in, and then I'm going to have to make a couple of changes. Hey, I did the right amount. Okay, so right now they all say Image Sprite 1. Only the first one should say 1. After that, the next one should say 2, then the next one should say 3. And what I'm dealing with in my designer here is all of these sprites that I just put up. I put up 10 of them, and that's what I'm dealing with here. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I could have gone into the sprite for each one. I could have went down here to sprite, went all the way down, and got Image Sprite 4 for number 4. This is exactly the same. So this is now a list that contains these sprites. So what I want to do is I want to create a for statement that's going to go through each item on this list and do some stuff. So I'm going to come over to Control, and I'm going to get the one that says for item in list, for each item in list. I'm going to click on that. And my list just plugs right in. So what this is telling it now is, for each item in this list, do some stuff. So let's tell it what we're going to do. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to set the image on the sprite to be visible, and I'm going to tell it what picture I want to use. Now here's the tricky part. If you were doing it individually with each sprite, then you would just come over to the sprite and you would get the visible and the picture property. But since I'm doing it on a list and it's going to involve different sprites, I have to come down all the way down to the bottom where it says any component and click this plus sign and open this area up. These are generic components. So this one where it says any sprite, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to come down, and I'm going to get the one that says visible. Set image sprite visible. And notice it doesn't say Image Sprite 1 or Image Sprite 2. It just says set image sprite. And let me show you why. Give me just 1 second to show you how to do it, and then I'll go back and explain why. So let's come back over to the image sprite and get the one that says picture. Set image sprite picture. Remember, these are all in alphabetical order by this last part here. So set the picture. So I'm going to set it to be visible, and I'm going to tell it what picture to have in it. So here's what's going to happen. This for loop is going to come over and is going to get this first one, whatever it is. In this case, they're sprites, but they could be anything. It's going to get this first one, and it's going to remember it as the variable item. So I need to get this variable item now and plug it into the component. And I need to do that for both of them, because this remembers which item we're on at that time. So the first time it goes through this loop, it knows that item is image sprite 1. And what I want it to do, I want it to set it to visible. So I'm going to come up and get to the logic and get a true and plug it in, because I want that sprite to be visible no matter which one it is. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the picture. And to do that, let me show you something here. We have all of the pictures already uploaded to be used. So I called it brick aqua, brick blue, brick green, brick pink, and brick yellow. I started with the word brick with a capital B, and then the color with a capital letter, .png. So I'm going to set all of these to be dark blue to start. And to do so, I'm going to get this text, and I'm going to get an empty text box, and I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to say, and this has to be exact, so if you have to go back and forth and look, that's fine. I'm going to say brick blue .png. So let me tell you what's going to happen now. This is going to go through. It's going to say, okay, image sprite 1, that's my item. So it's going to come down here and say on the item, which is image sprite 1, visible is true. And on the item, the picture is brick blue.png. Then it's going to loop, come back up, and it's going to do the same thing for image sprite 2. So item will now be image sprite 2. So come down here, and image sprite 2 visible will be true. Image sprite 2 picture will be brick blue.png. Then it comes back up again, and it goes to image sprite 3 and does the same thing until it gets through all of them. So now I'm just going to take this, and this is my start button. I'm just going to plug this for loop right into it. So now, let me pull up the emulator and show you. Now, all of these bricks should become visible and should be dark blue when I hit that start button. There they go. I haven't told it to do anything with it yet, but they all showed up and now they're all dark blue. This is a lot easier than adding the code for each one for both of these. I mean, I'd have to have 20 boxes at least to do this. And then if I decide I want more bricks later, all I have to do is add a few more into this list, and that's all there is to it, because it's already checking the entire list. So this saves you a whole lot of time and effort. If I wanted to do 100 bricks, all I have to do is add 100 more image sprites and make this list longer and put them all on there, and it would know to go through every one of them. So the next thing I want to do is I want to tell it what happens when the ball collides with one of those. So let's come over and see if I have a one for the ball. There's my ball one collided with. Let me grid it and drag this other one out of the way for a minute. Let's make it bigger again. I always like working with them a little bigger. That way it's easier for you to see. Okay. So now my ball heading is 360 minus the ball heading if the ball collides with anything. That's the paddle at this point. Now, we haven't told it that there's bricks yet, so if it hits anything, it's going to bounce off at that angle. It's going to add one to the score. It's going to play the sound. So what I want to do now is tell it... actually, I'm just going to leave that for this very minute. Because before I do anything with the collided with, I want to add one for the bricks. Remember, I had to do any sprite in order to handle any of these? So I'm going to do the same thing now. I'm going to come down to the any component, and I'm going to come to the image sprite, and I'm going to come to the golden section, and I'm going to say when any image sprite dot collided with. That's the very top one. And I'm going to add that right onto my screen. So now when any of my image sprites get collided with, and remember my image sprites are these blue bars now, when any of them get collided with, we're automatically going to know it's the ball colliding with them. So what we're going to do is, when any of them get collided with, we're going to make sure first that it's not the paddle for some reason. So, I mean, it can't be, but we're just going to make absolutely certain. So we're going to come get an if statement, and if then. I know I've mentioned this before, but if-then statements are very simple. They work exactly like you read them. If this is true, then do this. If hungry equals true, then go eat. I'm just going to plug that right in. And then I'm going to do a comparison to make sure that it's not my paddle that's hitting my sprite. And actually, I'm going to make sure it's not my sprite paddle, because technically these are all sprites, but so is my paddle. So I'm setting it up now so when my sprites get hit, they can start disappearing. Well, I don't want my paddle to disappear. That would be silly. So I'm going to go set it up so that the paddle doesn't disappear. So let's go into the logic and get a comparison with the equal sign. So I just went to logic and I got the green one with the equal sign. And then I need another from the logic. I want the and. Oops, actually no, I don't. I don't need that right now. So I'm going to plug this in. I'm going to plug this in, and I want to get the component. Whenever you collide with something, when any image sprite gets collided with, the component remembers what got collided with here. So whatever gets collided with, and now I'm going to come over, this is going to make more sense in a second. I'm going to come over to the paddle sprite, and I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to get the one that just says paddle sprite. So right now it says if whatever got collided with equals the paddle sprite, then do this. I'm going to change that because I don't want it to do it if it hits the paddle. I want it to do it if it hits something and it's not the paddle. So I'm going to come to this little drop down, and right now it says equals, but the equal with a line through it means not equal. So I'm telling it if whatever got collided with is not the paddle, do this stuff. So the next thing I need to do, I'm going to come in and I'm going to get me another if statement. Only this one's going to have an else on it also. If then else. And notice there's two different kinds. There's this kind that looks like this, but way up at the top there's a kind with a little blue gear. That's what I want. These have different connectors. This one will plug right in here in a minute. So I want to compare now. So I'm going to come to my logic. And this will make sense too in just a second. And I want to see if my image sprite picture of the component. So I'm going to come all the way down back to my any components and get my image sprite. I'm going to come down and get the one that says picture. And this time I want the one, this is a getter. Remember I told you about these before. The setters tell it to do something and the getters ask what it is. I want to ask if the picture on whatever we hit. Let me go ahead and plug this in. And I'm going to plug it in here. I want to ask if the picture of the component, that's what's getting hit, remember, equals, and I'm going to come back up to the text, and I'm going to plug this in, and I'm going to say brick blue.png. Oops. I have the worst time typing an H there instead of an N. I better double check the one we did just a minute ago. Okay, there it is. So if the picture of whatever got hit equals brickblue.png, then I want to do something. And what I want to do, I'm going to change that picture. So I'm going to come back over to my any image. I'm going to come back down to the picture section. And I'm going to get the set. And I'm just going to change the color. So I'm going to get component again, because we're still dealing with whatever got hit. So it's the same one. It's still remembering it. And I'm going to change it. It was bluebrick.png. I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm just going to change it to one of the other ones. So let's say I want the second one to be pink. So pink.png, brickpink.png. So right now, if whatever got hit is not the paddle, then it's going to come down and say, okay, well then was the picture on it brickblue.png? If it was, change it to brickpink.png. Let's see that in action real quick. So here's my ball. Hit it. Now it turned pink. Doesn't do anything else because I haven't told it to do anything else. But if it was blue, now it's pink. That's all we've told it to do so far. So now it's time to set up the other colors. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to this little gear icon, and I'm going to add some else if statements. I'm going to add several. Let's add like 4 or 5. We can always take them off if we add too many, or add more if we don't add enough. And I'm going to copy this entire section right here where it says if image sprite.picture get component brick blue. I'm going to copy this entire thing, duplicate it, and paste it right into the next if statement. Because the only thing that's going to be different is I'm going to check to see if it's a different color. So now, since pink is my second one, I'm going to check to see if it's pink. And if it is, I'm going to change the color. So I'm going to duplicate that and plug it in. And I'm going to change it from pink to aqua. A-Q-U-A. So brick aqua. And let's go check it out. See if it worked. There it goes. It went to aqua when it got hit a second time. So we're going to do the exact same thing. What's our other colors? We've already used blue, and we used pink, and I think now we've used aqua, so we still have green and yellow. So let's go back up. So if it was blue, then it turned to pink. If it was pink, then it turns to aqua. So we need to add another command to see if it was aqua. And if it is, let's change it to green. And then let's do one more to check to see if it's already green. And if it is, we'll set that to yellow. And one last thing. Okay, I've added an extra if statement, so I'm going to come back into my tools, and I'm going to take off the last else if statement because I don't want another else if statement there. Oops. But I'm going to put the else back on. So make sure you leave that else on there. Because here's how this works. An if then else statement, an if else statement will check the very first thing. If it's true, it will run the next line and then skip down to the end. So it's not going to be blue and say, okay, well now I'm going to turn it to pink and then check to see if it's pink. It's not going to do that. You've already seen that it doesn't do that. So after it does the then, it skips down until it's finished. So if it wasn't blue, then it would check the pink. If it wasn't pink, then it would check the aqua. If it wasn't aqua, then it would check the green. If it's not green, and I was wrong, I needed one more else if statement. So I'm going to add that back in now. I would like to say that I did that just so I could show you that, but I didn't. So, oh wait, if it was green, then make it yellow. And then I didn't have to check to see if it was yellow. So I guess I did need that out of there. Okay, one more time. Let's get that out. And make sure there's the else there. Okay, so I don't have to check the last time to see if it's yellow, because if it was green and now it's yellow, then that's good enough. Because the only other way it could hit something is if it's yellow. So I don't have to actually have a check there. So all I have to do is come back up to my sprite, my any component, and come all the way down to visible, and I'm going to set the visible to false of the component, and I can come all the way back up to my logic and get a false. So all we're doing is we're telling it that if it was blue, then make it pink. If it was pink, make it aqua. If it was aqua, make it green. If it was green, make it yellow. And we don't have to do it if it was yellow because that's the only other option. We're just going to tell it to make it invisible. So now our game should start changing them all for us. So let's test it out a little. Now it's aqua. That one's aqua. Green. Green again. Yellow, and disappeared. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So, there's only a couple other things we need to do. And I'm going to go to Designer first. And this is totally up to you. You don't have to do this part. This is a perfectly functioning, workable game as it is. But I'm going to add 2 more images just to show you that you can do this. And the first one, I'm going to change the picture to be what I've saved as Speedbolt. And that's a big, giant electrical looking thing. I'm going to make it a whole lot smaller. So I'm going to go down to around 50 by 50 and see if that's small enough. That's not bad, but it's still a little big. So I think I'm going to try 30 by 30. To be honest, that still looks a little big. So I might go down even smaller. Let's try 15 by 15. Okay, that's a pretty good size for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it that if it hits this little speed booster, the ball starts going a lot faster. And I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to slow it down. So that's going to be my stop one. And that's going to be huge also. You can barely even see it on the screen. But I'm going to just change it down, and I'm going to make it about 20 by 20. And I'm also going to rename these real quick. That way they don't get confused with all the other ones. So this one's just going to be my IMG stop, because this is my stop image. And this one's going to be my IMG boost. And of course we have an arrow there, because that's going to be my boost picture. So whenever the ball hits that, it'll go faster, and whenever it hits this one, it'll go slower. That's the whole point anyway of it. So to do so, I'm going to go back into my blocks, and I'm going to come over to my ball 1 collided with, and I'm going to put an if then else statement here. And I'm going to start by grabbing this and moving all of this into my else. And I need a comparison. And my comparison's going to say, first I'm going to get the other, so it knows what it hit. So if my ball hit, and then I got to come over to my boost, my image boost, and I'm just going to get the final thing there, the last one. If my ball hit the image boost, do something. Otherwise, do all this stuff, because you know it's one of the bricks. And what am I going to do? Well, all I'm going to do is set my ball speed. So let's go back into my ball and get the speed. And right now the ball's going at 5, but I'm going to change that to maybe 10. I was toying around with it before, and I made it a lot more. I made it like 20, and it goes really fast. So I'm going to change it to 10 for now. You play around with it and see what looks good for you. And then I can also go in and add another else statement, else if, and do the exact same thing and tell it that if it hits, I'm just going to duplicate both of these. Instead of image boost, my image stop. And then my speed's going to go back down to 5. So if it hits the image boost, my speed goes up to 10. Else if it hit the stop image, then my speed goes back down to 5. Otherwise, do all the stuff that it was doing, because that meant that you're hitting a brick. And let me pause. Okay, I got my emulator back up again. So if we start this now, you should, well, hit the wrong one first, didn't I? There's always things you can do. When I hit this one now, oh, see, it started going a lot faster. So what I need to do now, and I'm not going to do this, I'm just going to stop here. This is a fully functional game, but some things that you could do on your own to make it better would be to tell it not to have this one appear. They can slow it down unless you've already hit the boost. Excuse me. So to have this one not appear unless you've already hit the boost. And maybe you could have the boost just appear at certain times. You could have several, and you could have it randomly appear. So maybe the one over here appears, and then maybe it disappears. And then maybe the one over here appears, and maybe it disappears. And another thing you could do would be to add more bricks. You could add like 100 bricks here. You don't have to make them all visible every time. So I'm sure you've played different games like this where they show up in different patterns. Some of them are visible and some of them aren't. And that's entirely up to you how you want to set this up. Another thing that you see a lot in games like this, let me go back to the back to the designer, is they'll have the bricks arranged, and they'll have an extra ball in it, and the extra ball will just kind of be bouncing around. And then when you destroy this brick, or a brick, it comes out, and now it's a ball too. It's also a ball that's playing, and you can try to hit both of them. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. You can change the score. Right now we have it set up where anytime the ball hits any brick or any other image, we increase the score by 1. Well, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you just want to do it where when you break a brick, it increases by 10 or 15 or 20. And maybe hitting the paddle would give you 1, but you don't really need a point for hitting bricks randomly. But you might. I mean, it's totally up to you. You're the one that gets to decide all this because you're the creator. You can also change the background. A lot of games will use like a Mayan temple for one level, and then maybe some kind of a waterfall level for another one, or an Egyptian pyramid, or whatever you'd like. It's totally up to you as the designer. So just have fun with it. You could set it up where when you get a certain number of points, you get a second life. Or if you, maybe you could set it up where you start off with 3 lives, and when you hit the bottom, the game's not over. It can keep going until you've ran out of lives. Whatever you'd like to do, there's a lot of options here, and I totally invite you to explore it, play around with it, see what you can do, because that's the best way to learn. It's just to think, hey, could I do this? And then try it. So anyway, I hope y'all had fun with this. This is a fully functioning app now that you can take with you and play and have fun. So hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next segment. Bye, everybody.